What's up YouTube, Dell here from Zephyr, and today I'm bringing you a video that I haven't done for a while, and today I'm going to be bringing you a test hand combo video for the Dracotail Shaddoll profile I showed you all the other day. So this has been like the most requested version of Dracotail on the channel. It's also been one of the versions that a lot of people are looking into for the upcoming format, or technically the current format, depending on how the ban list shapes it out. So what I do is I thought I'd bring you a test hand video to show you what this deck can do. I'll highlight like the basic 1.5 card combos that you are completely in control of, but then with a deck like this as well, it's very, very reactive depending on what else your opponent tries to do. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you do not miss out on any more upcoming content. After a very decent shuffle and a good old cut, we'll do 2 test hands going first and 2 test hands going second, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so going second, it's not so bad because what you do is you would oppress your opponent with Droll. You've got the follow-up of the Dracotail. Unfortunately, without another Dracotail monster, your Feymana is not going to be that useful for you because annoyingly, Droll is the only one that doesn't help. If this was a Dark Monster, we'd basically be able to window our opponent, which would be really, really good. However, with this particular hand here, what we can do is we can actually activate the Dracotail. Again, we'd be in a bit of a disadvantage if our opponent does decide to Ash this, which is quite possible, but in doing so, again, the benefit you're going to get with something like this is if they do that, you still have the Droll to fall back on, you'll still have the Feymana to attempt to try and fuse, depending on where you can get to and slowing the game down. So depending on what you have access to, they'll give you a couple of different routes. We're going to go off the back of the Dracotail. This is then going to allow us to send one from the deck and then use one from the hand. So what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to use a Dracotail from the deck. So we're going to use Yugioh, and then we're going to be able to use a monster in the hand, and that monster in the hand, of course, is going to be Shaddoll Beast, because that's when we're going to get the most advantage. There we go. So that goes to the graveyard. That goes there. We're going to go into the Arthleon, and this is where Arthleon just really comes into its own. So you're going to be able to go Chain Link 1 Arthleon, do Chain Link 2 Beast, and then Chain Link 3 Yugioh. And the reason you would do that, this is going to be allowing you to this is going to allow it to protect Beast from being ashed, but chances are they probably would have ashed the Dracotail anyway. But it stops the Beast being interacted with. It also protects the Arthleon being interacted with unless they imperm it. Arthleon will, of course, target the Yugioh, which means you get your starter back to the hand. So what you'll do here is you'll resolve the Yugioh. Yugioh, the card I'm probably going to want to set through off the back of this one, will be your Ketu, because Ketu is going to allow you to add a Dracotail monster and then build on from there. You then get to shuffle up. You'll resolve the Beast by drawing a card. Shaddoll Fusion, not too bad, but not great in this particular scenario unless our opponent is playing K9s or Dracotails themselves. And then the Arthleon will return the Yugioh to the hand. So now what we'll do here is we'll activate the Ketu Dracotail. This is then going to allow us to add a Dracotail monster, and then if our opponent controls the monster, we could fuse, but we're not going to be doing that. Now the one that I would advise you to go for, specifically when you've got something like a Shaddoll Fusion in the hand, is you might want to go for a Dark, being the Dracotail Mululu. Now we still have the ability to fuse because you also have the ability to utilize the Feymana, and that will then allow you to get into your next Dracotail play. So we'll shuffle this up. Unfortunately, we've already used the Yugioh, so fusing with Yugioh is not going to be that effective for you, but keep in mind you've also already used the Arthleon's effect, so this is just free fusion material as you want to go for it. So what you can do here is you can utilize the Feymana. Feymana will then allow you to fuse. The fusion will be the Arthleon. Actually, instead of the Mululu, let's go for, I think a better option would be, where are we? Let's go for Urgler instead. Let's go for Urgler instead of the Mululu, because you'll get the same outcome, but better. So if we then use Feymana to fuse the Urgler and the Arthleon, I haven't even used Yugioh yet, which is fine, so we could have fixed that in a different way. So you're going to fuse these two together. You're going to go into your Glamel. You'll then be able to go effect of your Urgler. There's no other chains to make here. You could chain your Glamel, but there's no monster your opponent has, so you can't really destroy anything. The Yugioh will then let you set a card. The card that I would advise you to set on this one will be either Horn or Flame. And then what you're going to want to do here is you're going to want to utilize the effect of Yugioh to put yourself back to the bottom of the deck. Add the Feymana back to your hand, so you've got that follow-up for the next turn. You can then normal summon down your Lugias. Lugias effect is then going to allow you to add, and this is when you're going to want to add either an Urgler if you want to deal with a spell or trap your opponent's going to set, but probably what's going to be more effective would be to add either Pan or the Moolulu, so either or will be just as good for you. Now, in an ideal scenario, what you'd want to do here is you'd want to be able to have access to your Arfleon. That would then give you a dragon, and then you could turn Lugias into something else, go into the Blue Eyes Link 1, and then you can go into Erratic Seals. Obviously, in the Shaddoll build, we don't play the Erratic Seals, and we're also locked because you've already used Rahu Dragotail, so you do need to be very careful on that as well if your opponent is playing this particular deck. But as this deck is very reactive, what we'll do is we'll now pass to our opponent's turn. Like I said, you've chosen to go for Horn or Flame. You could go for both if you wanted to, but that would have meant you don't get Ketu Dragotail. And even then, we're still in a very good position because what we're about to do is interact with our opponent quite a lot during their turn. So, during their turn, as we work into the draw phase, you've got the ability, into the main phase, you've got the ability to activate the Feymena whenever you see fit. Now, you can also activate Draw and Lockbird. This will then stop your opponent adding cards constantly, which is really, really important. And then you can activate the Feymena. If they have no response, you can chain the Glimmer to destroy one of your opponent's monsters. If they do have a response, that's absolutely fine. Then you don't chain the Glimmer because it's a when effect. You would miss that. But you resolve the Feymena. You can choose to fuse with Lugias and Pan, or of course you can choose to fuse with the Dracotail Glimmer and then your Lugias or anything. Your Glimmer and then technically your Lugias, but you also can go for the Pan and Lugias. Now in these ones, when you're fusing these two together, you've got two options. Because you're not going into, you don't have to specifically go into a Dracotail. If you're in the mirror match, you can go for the Secturion Dragon. That will completely shut your opponent down. You've got the Mysterion, the Crown for the Yummy matchup. And then you've also got your Arfleon for any other matchup, basically. Now you used one monster on the field, one monster in the hand. You'll then be able to chain their effects. So you'll be able to go Chainlink 1, Pan, Chainlink 2, Lugias, or sorry, Chainlink 1 will be Arfleon, target will be Feymena to add that back. Chainlink 2 will be Pan, Chainlink 3 will be Lugias, and then Chainlink 4 can be the Arfleon in the grave to bring yourself back to the field. So you'd then be able to go bring back the Arfleon. Pan would then let you set. So Pan can set you a follow-up for the next turn. We'll go for Ketu. And then destroy a monster. Your Lugias will then resolve, it's setting you one. And again, we've already got Rahu Dragotail, so you might as well set your Dracotail Flame. And then you've got your Arfleon adding your Feymena back to the hand. Unless you want to return one of your opponent's monsters, then by all means you can do. Now as this currently stands, the only other card we've got left to activate is Horn. So you can activate Horn. You can put a Ketu or a Rahu back to the bottom of the deck, absolutely fine. And then draw a fresh new card. Ash, which is another interaction, so you can then Ash your opponent. So what we've done is we've destroyed a card. We have the ability to return a card if we want to, don't have to. We've destroyed another card with Pan. We've returned a card with Horn and then drawn a card. So you've got a couple of different options on that one. And then as this comes back to you, you're still fully full or like completely full with advantage. So you draw for turn, doesn't matter what it is, which is a fluid loss, which is absolutely fine. Because now we can activate Ketu. Now, if our opponent controls a monster, we get another fusion. If they don't, it doesn't matter. So we'll use Ketu, we'll grab ourselves a Lugias, so we've got a starter to go off again. Now let's make sure we don't fusion lock ourselves just yet. This is the one that's going to get banished if it leaves the field, so remember that. Normal summon the Lugias effect then lets you add. So let's say we want to deal with a spell or trap, you can add an Urgler. You then have the ability, if they've got a monster you want to negate, you've got Rahu, you've still got Shaddoll Fusion, like you've got so many different options. If they try to activate a spell or trap, you activate Flame, which is why you're trying to go for the Urgler to deal with it. And at the very least, you're just switching all three of these to attack, once I get those out of the way. Switching all of these to attack, and then these are enough to kind of push for anything, because then Glimmer can destroy a card as well. So you've got a lot of recursion, you've got a lot of aggression, and that was all like your first turn, and then interacting with your opponent during their turn. Like, this is the one thing that this deck does very, very well, is the canines require you to utilize stuff, whereas this is just say, yeah, I'll do it whenever I want during the main phase. So you're more in control as you go. So now what we'll do is we'll shuffle out and we'll go first again. Obviously a lot of random draws throughout the plays on this one that will just either increase or kind of slow down some of your plays, but that's all kind of slightly understandable. So after another decent shuffle and a good old cut, another test hand going first will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, well, that's the reason what you're going to get when you're playing free beast is you're always going to see it in your hand, but that's just part and part of it. So, Ketu Dracotail is actually a really kind of cool 1.5 card combo, and you'll see that as we make these plays. Because remember, getting rid of Beast is not actually a negative. So we're going to activate the Ketu Dracotail. The one you're going to want to go for will be your Lucius. This will be the biggest issue is if you get hit with a Droll, but then keep in mind that as we get hit with a Droll on retaliation, you could normal summon down the Lucius if you wanted to, or you just go Droll and Ghost Bell during your opponent's turn. So again, a couple of different options depending on what environment you're in. So then normal summon down the Lucius. Lucius effect, you're going to want to go for your fusion play, which will be your Feymana. There we go. So now you've got the Feymana guaranteed in rotation. You're now going to be able to activate Feymana's effect. You're going to fuse with your Dracotail monster being your Lucius and the monster in the hand being your Beast to get you into your Artheon. You're going to go Chaining 1 Artheon, Chaining 2 Beast, Chaining 3 Lucius. Lucius will then set you one, so we're going to set Rahu. Beast will then get you a randomized draw, and the target of the Artheon will be your Feymana, so you've got that for a follow-up of the next turn. So shuffle this up, draw a random off a Beast, Feymana, add the Feymana back, absolutely fine. Now activate the Rahu Dracotail, send from deck to grave, Urgula, and then use Feymana. This will then get you into Gomel. Chaining 1 Feymana, Chaining 2 Urgula, or vice versa, doesn't make much of a difference. Set the 2 trap cards on this one, so we're going to set Horn and Flame. And then you're going to use Urgula to put itself back to the bottom of the deck. Now, you don't have to add the Feymana back. You could very easily add the Lucius, but up to you. We're going to add back the Feymana because they don't know we've got that Feymana in the hand. Like, that's still unknown. Now they know we've got a Feymana, and if you choose not to add the Feymana, they'll know you've got a Feymana because it would be crazy not to. Now you can link the, you can't link these two, sorry, because we're on the Rahu Dracotail, so you're going to leave these as they are. You've got your 2 cards here, and you're going to pass your opponent's turn. Now again, as I did in the previous test stand, I'll show you how you're going to interact during your opponent's turn. So, the difference with stuff like this is going to let you to destroy a card. So they need to be able to put a spell or trap down first. And then you're going to actually use Flame to negate it. So you kind of have to let your opponent build up a little bit. So what you'd be doing is you'd probably be going Flame to negate, perfect, put Rahu back to the bottom of the deck, draw a card. Then you could use Horn, technically, and Horn could put Flame to the bottom of the deck, and then you draw another card. There you go, Rahu's back to the bottom. And then you've got the ability to draw your opponent. You've got the ability to Ghost Bow your opponent. And then regardless of, like, ignoring Lucius, we're just not even considering it being a Dracotail. But then you've got the ability to go Feymana. Anything from our opponent? No? Okay, cool. Glamel to destroy. So you destroy another card. You fuse your Artheon and then the Feymana in the hand. This can then get you into another Artheon. Artheon can go Chaining 1 and can choose to return one of your opponent's monsters or one from your graveyard. Entirely up to you. So if you want to add back the Feymana, if you've got the follow-up for the next turn, you can do. Your Feymana will then use an effect to set the Rahu Dracotail, and then you continue into play. So your opponent's been drolled, they've been belled, they've had 1 destroyed off of Glamel, they've had 1 return to the hand off of the back of Horn, they've had a spell negated off of the back of Flame, you've drawn 2 cards, like you've just got the follow-up of the advantage, it comes back to you, you draw for turn, doesn't matter what it is, activate Rahu Dracotail or Ketu that we've already had from the previous turn, make your plays further from that point on. You've got 3k there, you've got 28 there. Rahu Dracotail will send you 1 from the deck, so you've got Urgula if you need to deal with a spell or trap, and then 1 in the hand, so let's get rid of Droll. This will then go into the Glamel because we've got our second Artheon in the graveyard. Artheon's effect in the graveyard will come back alongside the ability of Urgula to destroy a spell or trap and then set a card, so that will guarantee you the Ketu, but if you don't feel you're going to be able to push for an OTK, you can also go for a Flame. And then you've got the ability of already triggering your first Glamel to destroy a card, and you've just got enough damage on board here. And you haven't even need to use Ketu, you haven't need to use a normal summon, like you just have more than enough to kind of push through all of that. So now let's go second. Now let's try and break fields. This is where we've got to try and take into account the type of fields that opponents will be presenting against us. Now, this is where your Shaddoll Fusion is really going to come into its own, because the Shaddoll Fusion is just going to net you so much advantage from 1 card, it's crazy. So, send Beast, you replace Shaddoll Fusion. Send a Dracotail monster, you set a card that can then follow you up for a Ketu or a Rahu or anything like that. So, we'll shuffle up, we'll cut up, and that's not even taking into account how you can weaken your opponent's field by utilising hand traps. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, again, we don't have another Dracotail, so you can't really fuse a rock and a spellcaster. So what I'd probably be doing here is I'd probably very easily be drawing my opponent, and I'm probably going to be nibbing my opponent because you want to make sure they don't have as much advantage as they possibly can do. And then we're going to draw for turn. Now, draw for turn is Feymena. We still have the ability to fuse because this is a Dracotail monster, so this will be... Oh, apologies, no. You can't use... So this is one very important thing to remember as well, is a Dracotail fusion needs a Dracotail monster and a monster in the hand. So, what I mean by that is if I try to activate the Feymena here, the monster in the hand will be this Feymena, but the monster on the field won't be a Dracotail, so it doesn't actually play. Not that it makes any difference because the Rahu Dragotail is going to fix this anyway. But this is also what I mean by like always seeing Horn or Flame in my hand when I go second. It's really annoying. So we'll activate Rahu Dragotail. We're going to send from deck to the grave. Depends on what you need to deal with, to be completely honest with you. If you feel you need to deal with a spell, you'll set a spell or trap, you'll send your Urgler. If you feel you need to deal with a monster, you'll send Pan. So send the Urgler, send the Feymena. Go into an Artheon. Artheon used one monster in the hand, so we'll go Chain Link 1 Artheon. We'll return one of our opponent's monsters if they have any, otherwise you just add back. You could technically add back Droll, which is really funny. And then we'll be able to utilise Urgler and Feymena to set. So you're going to want to set a Ketu, and then you might as well set a follow-up for Flame, just in case you need it. So what you can do here is you can activate Ketu. If your opponent has a monster, of course you can fuse. So we'll go Ketu, we'll just add Lucias. We'll say they don't have any monsters by now because we've returned monsters and destroyed monsters and nibbed monsters and returned their tokens. We've got rid of that. Normal summon Lucias. Lucias effect can then search. I would probably go for a Moodaloo now, as we've already used the Feymena's graveyard set effect. So we don't need to worry about that heavily. We still have the Feymena hand effect if we want to. We've got the Urgler effect to put it back to the bottom of the deck and add the Feymena back to the hand. And if we feel we need to get another monster to the hand, to the field, you can use this Feymena using Moodaloo and Feymena itself. This lets you get into a spellcaster or a dragon. So we'll go into Secturion Dragon. You would then get to trigger the Feymena, the Moodaloo to set. So we'll set a follow-up, so let's just set Ketu. You've then got the ability of the Secturion Dragon, so you can summon back a spellcaster and you can put a dragon to the bottom of the deck. So you can either summon back a Moodaloo, which will give you a quick effect to fuse, and you put the Feymena back to the bottom of the deck. And then if you want to use Moodaloo to fuse, we can use that to fuse itself plus the Lucias. I don't know if there's any benefit for that one because you're just going for a 29 for a 28, but at least it will give you a disruption during your opponent's turn. Set the Horn. You've cleared everything off. Lucias will set a card. Moodaloo's already been used. Lucias will probably set you a Rahu for a follow-up. Not that you're going to need it, because then what you're going to be able to do here is you're going to be able to go, cool, Arthleon, 3k, Secturion Dragon, 3k, 28 for Glamel, and 3k from the Biru. So, like, that's your OTK. Keep in mind, if they have banished any of your cards, your Secturion Dragon will be slightly weaker, but you can kind of see you had the Majesty Crown if you wanted to instead, to go down that route. And that's why I really like Secturion Dragon, just because of that ability to revive a spellcaster or a dragon and then recycle a spellcaster or a dragon is really helpful. Anyway, we're now going to shuffle up. We're going to do our last test stand going second now. Now, again, depending on what our opponent's endfield was, but like our opponent was drolled and then nibbed, so their endfield's not going to be massively impressive, and then we're able to pick apart their spells and traps as we go. So, for a decent shuffle and a cut, our hand will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh, okay, so this is quite interesting. So this during our opponent's turn, we can just net so much advantage, it's pretty crazy. So you'd go Feymena, and you obviously do this at a point where they don't have an Omni Negate set up or a way to negate this. Like if they have Call by the Grave, they have Call by the Grave. But so what you do here is you'll fuse using your Lucias and your Moodaloo. We'll go into the Artheon. We'll go Artheon's effect can target 2. Now, if we want to deal with our opponent's field, keep in mind we've got Ketu and Rahu here, and then we also have Moodaloo and Lucias to set. You could actually leave these in the graveyard. It's probably not the worst thing to do, but it's probably also not the best thing to do, so it's entirely up to you. So let's say we'll meet in the middle, right? We will return one monster our opponent controls to the hand. We will return Lucias to our hand. We will then set off the back of Lucias and Moodaloo, Horn, and you might as well set Flame. Now, the only reason you wouldn't set these is if your opponent can destroy them, which you'd use a little bit of common sense and just not do that. If your opponent has a monster on the field, your Moodaloo can also negate it, which is really useful. And the reason that we've added the Lugias back and not the Feymana is that our Lugias can get us our Feymana again alongside the Ketu. So we've bounced one. You could technically bounce two because you've got Ketu and Rahu here. You've got a Horn and a Flame set up for the follow-up. So if they know about Horn, they're probably not going to put a monster in attack position where until they can main it. Because then what you can do is then during the draw phase, which is a period where the Yummy Snatchy can't activate, you can use Horn to bounce it back, which is really quite helpful. And then you'll put one of your cards back and draw a card. So pass back to us, we'll draw for turn. Moodaloo is absolutely fine. In the draw phase, if you have to, you can use Horn, put back Feymana. There we go. Yeah, put back Feymana, draw a card. Ketu, okay. Not ideal, but is what it is. Activate Ketu. We've already got our Lugias, so let's say we want to deal with spells and traps now, so we'll add a Urgula. Now, if our opponent controls a monster, we get to fusion summon. So, if we're saying our opponent controls a monster, we'll fuse. If we're saying our opponent doesn't control a monster, we won't fuse. So, you get either or on that one. So let's use Urgula and Lugias. We'll go into the... I mean, you could go into an Artheon if you want to, but we'll go into Glamel. And the reason we're going to do this is because we're saying our opponent controls a monster. So we'll be able to go... Chain Link 1 will be Urgula to destroy a spell or trap and set a Dracotail card. Lugias will be Chain Link 2. And then if our opponent doesn't have anything, we'll go Glamel. So usually what you'll be best to do is you'll resolve these chains, and then Glamel will be Chain Link 3. So Glamel will then destroy the monster that's left on the field. Lugias will set a card. So we'll set one that we haven't used yet, which will be Rahu. And then your Urgula will set a card, which will be another Ketu. You don't have to, but you do need to set one to get the pop of the spell or trap. It will then destroy the spell or trap along the spells and trap zone. Then what we could do is you could use Urgula's effect to put itself back to the bottom of the deck and let you add the Lugias back to the hand. You can normal summon down the Lugias. Now keep in mind, until we use the Rahu Dracotail, we're not going to be fusion locked. So we'll use this to grab us a... wherever it may be, Feymana. You have the ability to fuse with Feymana if you want to, otherwise you just use Rahu Dracotail. It doesn't make much of a difference here. We've pretty much got everything in rotation that we need. So switch this to attack, activate the Rahu Dracotail. This will then get you into an Artheon. So you go Artheon by using, doesn't make much of a difference, probably Moodaloo in the hand, I guess. If your opponent's got a monster, you send Pan. If they don't, you know, you can send whatever you want, really. Let's send Pan just so we've got that in rotation. And then if you really, really want to, you could Feymana and fuse Lugias in this one. Dragon and a Spellcaster to get you into the Secturion Dragon. Secturion Dragon can recycle. I believe it can recycle the Artheon. It doesn't have to go back to the bottom of the main deck. But then I can never remember the ruling, because there are some times where people are like, oh no, it has to go back to the bottom. So I suppose we just summon Pan and we put Lugias back to the bottom. Yeah, and then that's your aggression for the OTK. Now I do know that if we fused away the Artheon a little bit earlier on, when we use Rahu Dracotail, you'd actually be able to bring this guy back. So that is an option for you as well, as if you need to. But, I mean, we pretty much had it from, you know, most early point on anyway. So that's it for the entire profile and the test hand breakdown. I hope this has given you a bit of an insight in the deck. I know it's not you're only going to get more from this deck if you see it in live action duels, and that's when you're going to get a bit more information on the way the deck runs. You didn't get to see a lot of the Shaddoll elements, but you kind of saw how Beast was utilised to give you the draw factor. And then if you do end up seeing a Shaddoll Fusion go in second, you're just going to net so much advantage, it's crazy. Because you go Shaddoll Fusion, if you want Shekhanaga to deal with a Nibiru, you send your Lugias and a Hedgehog. If you want a Grista, because you feel your opponent might try and summon a monster, you then send the Urgula, which in turn will deal with a spell and trap, plus a Hedgehog, which will get you the Beast. And what you're saying to your opponent is, if you trigger my Shekhanaga or you trigger my Grista, you're also going to give me a draw as well, which is, again, going to net you advantage, which is crazy. Anyway, thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.